Thank you for downloading this Council on Foreign Relations video. CFR is an independent national membership organization and nonpartisan research center. For more information, please visit us online at cfr.org.
Welcome. I am Bob Rubin, and I am here to welcome you, all of you as members, Council of Foreign Relations, as we welcome our distinguished guest, President Lee Myung-bak of the Republic of Korea. In accordance with Council practice, I will not describe his resume. It's in your materials. But I will observe that it is really a truly remarkable record of success and effectiveness in both the private sector and the public sector, and it is well worth looking at. The only specific item I will mention is one simply because it is somewhat curious, and that is the President is to this day the honorary ambassador of the state of Arkansas. Let me make one personal comment about President Lee, if I may. I had the opportunity to be with the President when he delivered his remarks to celebrate the first anniversary of his election as President of the Republic of Korea. It was a time when the financial crisis was profoundly affecting Korean exports, Korean GDP, and the won. President Lee's comments reflected a truly keen understanding of the economic issues his country faced, a sensible and highly proactive approach to addressing those problems, and a sound long-term strategy for Korea. At a time when the global economy is still facing such daunting short-term and long-term issues, I believe it is exceedingly fortunate, not only for the people of Korea, but for the entire global community, that the President of a major economy has the level of sophistication and understanding that President Lee has with respect to economic issues. And that is particularly important because President Lee, as you know, will chair the G20 after the Pittsburgh meeting. Before President Lee comes to the platform, let me mention a few housekeeping items. This meeting will be on the record. It is being teleconferenced to Council members around the world. We ask you to please turn off cell phones, Blackberries, and whatever else you may have brought with you. After President Lee's remarks, the President and I will sit here for a few moments, and I'll pose a couple of questions to the President, and then we will open the questions to all of you. With that housekeeping out of the way, it is my enormous privilege and pleasure on behalf of the Council on Foreign Relations to introduce the President of the Republic of Korea, President Lee Myung-bak. Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Rubin. Thank you for those warm remarks. Today it's a great honor and a privilege for me to be invited by the three institutions. I'm very, very thankful for your invitation. The last time I was in CFR was in March of 2006. Back then I was mayor of Seoul, and I had an opportunity to speak before you here at CFR. It's been a little over 2 years, and now today I'm back at the CFR. What I would like to do, ladies and gentlemen, today is to talk about the Korea-U.S. alliance and also share with you my vision for the future of the Korea-U.S. alliance as well. Ladies and gentlemen, next year we commemorate the 60th anniversary of the Korean War. More than 37,000 young American soldiers came to defend a country they never knew and a people they never met, and so that is why the Korean War must never be a forgotten war. The very first chairman of the Korea Society, General Van Fleet, lost his son, Jim Van Fleet, who used to be a B-29 bomber pilot who died while in battle to defend Korea. Among those who took part in the Korean War, 142 of them were sons of active American generals, and out of these 142, 35 of them were either killed or wounded in battle. These brave soldiers defended freedom and liberty in Korea, and following in their footsteps, today there are more than 27,500 American men and women in uniform serving in the Republic of Korea, helping us defend our freedom and ensure our security. Many of them are doing what their grandfathers and fathers did by serving in Korea, and of course one of them is the current U.S. Force Commander, General Walter Sharp. What these and many other Americans did was to help lay the foundation for freedom and democracy to bear fruit in the Republic. The United States was the stepping stone that made possible Korea's ascent into prosperity, and herein lie the strength and the foundation of our alliance. The United States and the Republic of Korea share values, and we fought together side by side to defend these values. This is what makes our alliance so resilient and enduring. The combination of U.S. assistance and Korea's determination and hard work led to phenomenal growth in all aspects. Korea was one of the poorest countries in the world, with a per capita GDP of less than $50 in the 1950s. Now Korea became a country with a per capita GDP of close to $20,000, the size of its economy near the top 10 in global terms. Korea is also now a member of the G20 and serving as one of the chair of the Troika of all the countries that gained independence following the end of the Second World War. Korea was the only country to have achieved both democracy and industrialization. From a country that sustained itself through the largesse and generosity of others, we now hope to become a nation that gives back. The remarkable accomplishments that we managed to achieve in half a century is something that we as Koreans are all proud of. It is also something for you as Americans to be proud of. Distinguished guests, the alliance made in 1954 was a military alliance born out of a desperate need to defend a country from aggression. It was an alliance forged to protect Korea from the threat of communism after the peninsula was divided into two following the Korean War. It was a security alliance to manage the balance of power on the Korean peninsula and in the Northeast Asian region in an age when the world was fighting a Cold War. Last June, President Obama and I agreed to adopt a joint vision for the future of the alliance during our summit meeting in Washington, D.C. What we agreed by adopting this vision was that we will work towards making this alliance into something that will positively contribute to promoting peace and prosperity around the world. We also agreed that this alliance will no longer just be about ensuring security, but much more. It will continue to carry out its purpose of securing peace, but at the same time it will be a comprehensive strategic alliance of the 21st century that encompasses economic, social, cultural, educational, scientific, and technological cooperation. The future vision of this alliance is the common roadmap for the future of our partnership. This partnership has been tested throughout the last 55 years. The Cold War, post-Cold War, 9/11, and as such, has shaped the need and determined the scope of our alliance. Now we are called upon to transform this alliance into a more mature and future-oriented alliance. Now the Republic of Korea and the United States will work to protect and promote values which we both believe in. We will work together so that we can make substantive contributions to issues like global issues such as climate change, eradicating terrorism, stopping nuclear proliferation, fighting the spread of drugs, and fighting the spread of disease. And for this, Korea will expand its contributions to the international community. We will share our development experience with those who are seeking to get on the path to sustainable development so that they can find a model that is suitable for them to attain sustainable development. And also, the Republic of Korea will increase our financial assistance of ODA. By 2015, we will increase it by threefold. And Korean soldiers are taking part in U.S. peacekeeping efforts as well as multinational coalitions in 13 parts of the world, preventing outbreak of conflict, taking part in peace building, peaceful reconstruction, providing agricultural and medical services to remote parts of the world. And also, another critical issue that faces us is the issue of tackling global climate change. And that is why the area of green growth is an area where our two countries can further expand our cooperation. The Republic of Korea has set forth a new national vision and will vigorously pursue this long-term goal, focusing on our low-carbon green growth future, focusing on clean technologies, smart grids, and green vehicles, as well as nuclear energy. Korea will, of course, seek closer cooperation with the U.S. in developing such technologies. This is significant not only for closer bilateral ties, but also part of our common goal and responsibility in seeking out a new engine of growth for the future. Distinguished guests, exchange between people of our two countries have been expanding. Every year, 1.4 million people visit each other. Last year, Korea became a member of the visa waiver program being implemented by the U.S. government, and this has led to increased people-to-people exchanges. The number of Korean students studying here in the United States is on a par with countries that are much larger than Korea, like China and India. However, trade between Korea and the U.S. has been faltering a little bit in recent times. Our trade volume has risen twofold. However, our trade with the United States, which used to be our largest trading partner, in the same period of time, over the last 8 years or so, has only increased twofold. This figure is rather small because this makes the United States the 5th largest trading partner for the Republic of Korea. The current trade volume stands at $83 billion, and now this makes Korea the 7th trading partner when viewed from the United States. This comparatively slow increase in bilateral trade can be dramatically increased through the passage and the implementation of the KORS FTA. The KORS FTA contains strengthened provisions on investment guarantee and tools that will protect intellectual property rights. These are measures that will promote bilateral investments and, of course, increase trade and investments, will also contribute to creating quality jobs here in the United States. The KORS FTA will further consolidate the expansion and cooperation between the U.S. with a region that is dynamic and vigorous like the Northeast Asian region. The KORS FTA will elevate the Korea-U.S. alliance into one that goes beyond the military security alliance. It will become the catalyst in making this alliance into a comprehensive strategic alliance that encompasses economic and social aspects as well. It is my sincere wish that our governments will continue to work together with such shared vision so that this agreement can be ratified and implemented at the earliest possible date. Ladies and gentlemen, today the Korean Peninsula is the only divided region in the world. Another important task that our alliance must address is to bring an end to this division and to lay the foundation for permanent peace on the peninsula. And for us to achieve this peaceful unification, we must first attain the goal of a Korean peninsula free of nuclear weapons, and this is why North Korea must abandon all its nuclear programs, and we must convince them to do so. Unfortunately, we do not find any signs anywhere that North Korea has such intentions. Up until now, the North Korean nuclear issue has gone through the same predictable pattern, a pattern oscillating between dialogue and tension. We made progress only to take backward steps. The North Koreans made pledges only to rescind. We did not touch the fundamental issue, which is the complete dismantlement of North Korea's nuclear weapons program. Instead, we compensated them for agreeing to freeze their programs, and we compensated them for not keeping their promises. And sadly, we cannot go back to our traditional negotiating pattern. We must not repeat our mistakes that we made during the last 20 years, and this is the reason why I proposed during my last summit meeting with President Obama a meeting of the 5 parties within the 6-party talks framework. The 5 parties must come to a clear understanding and agree on the specific action plan with an aim to achieve full dismantlement of North Korean nuclear weapons program. We must have a comprehensive and integrated approach to fundamentally resolve the North Korean nuclear issue. Through the 6-party talks, we must first dismantle the core component of the North Korean nuclear weapons program, and we will then be ready to provide North Korea with security assurances as well as international assistance. This is what we mean by a grand bargain. I made it clear once again during my National Day speech delivered last August that I am prepared to pursue a new peace initiative if North Korea makes that strategic decision to fully and irrevocably give up their nuclear ambitions. This new initiative will greatly improve the lives of ordinary North Koreans and bring about fundamental change. The North Koreans mustn't consider our proposal as a threat to their regime or as an attempt to isolate them. Once North Korea gives up their nuclear programs and ambitions, they will begin to enjoy a new relationship with the rest of the world. This is the only way for them to ensure their own survival and the only way for them to get on the path to sustainable development. When North Korea commits to this goal, no country will be hostile to them, and they will be welcomed by the international community. Those of us taking part in the 6-party talks must continue to work closer together so that North Korea understands this. They must accurately read what is unfolding and promptly make that critical decision. And in this regard, the role of the host of the 6-party talks, China, has become that much more important. And of course, Korea will continue to do all that it can. And when we talk and cooperate with the North Koreans, resolving the North Korean nuclear issue will remain as one of the key agendas. President Obama and I share the same view on ways to resolve this issue, and that is why Korea-U.S. cooperation will be further strengthened. The latest UN Security Council resolution will, of course, continue to be faithfully implemented while encouraging North Korea to take that important step. North Koreans are facing not a threat, but an opportunity. North Korea must not throw away what may be their last chance. Ladies and gentlemen, pretty soon the Korea-U.S. alliance will be handed over to a generation that never experienced war or the harsh reality of the Cold War. Countries in Northeast Asia will be led by the post-war generation, and we will see a change of leadership in these countries. Japan, for instance, has succeeded in changing its leadership for the first time in 55 years, and China, last week, through their Central Committee, has consolidated its 4th generation of leadership. A new era calls for new kinds of cooperation, and strengthened cooperation requires that we have more dialogue and more understanding of each other. The Northeast Asian region is no longer the stage where opposing ideologies collide. We must now look towards the same goals and face the same challenges together and work together. This is the way to foster a cooperative network that will resolve issues of common concern and ensure our common prosperity. And in such times, the strategic role of the United States is more important than ever, not only on the peninsula but throughout the region, and such an environment also provides for an opportunity for the U.S. to contribute more broadly to expanding this alliance. Korea and the U.S. are embarking on a new journey One aimed at promoting peace around the world, let us be proud of what we achieved together over the last decades, and now let us prepare to set sail to open up new horizons. Lastly, I am here to attend the 64th UN General Assembly, and we all hope for the success of the climate change meeting so that we can ensure success of the Copenhagen meeting at the end of this year. And also the Pittsburgh G20 meeting will be an occasion for the world leaders to discuss ways to escape and resolve and for us to come out of the global current crisis. Thank you very much.
Okay, here's what we're going to do now. I'm going to spend about just a few minutes. I'm going to pose two questions to the President, which will relate to the comments he just made, and then the floor is yours. When you all get up to ask questions, please wait for the microphone, state your name, your affiliation. Only one question, make it concise so as many people can speak as possible. Let me start you off with this, if I may, Mr. President. I think the broad-based feeling in this country, at least, that over the decades ahead, Asia will become the single largest part of the global economy. As that occurs, what kind of relationship do you think will develop between China, Japan, and Korea particularly? And as a follow-up on that, is it likely that you will move toward forming a bloc, as the European countries did, or remain separate? And although you alluded to this in your speech, what role do you think the United States should play in that region?
아주 어려운 질문했습니다.
Well, that's a very difficult question.
Oh, I think, Mr. President, you understand. Yeah, the President understands English.
우선 루빈 우리 전 장관께서 사회를 봐주시고 이 대화를 하게 돼서 아주 고맙게 생각합니다.
So first of all, ladies and gentlemen, it's a great pleasure and an honor that Mr. Rubin is moderating this session. So thank you very much.
우리 루빈 씨 이야기하는데 알아들었으니까 그냥 답변하게.
Yes, so don't worry, I understood your question, so I'll
Okay.
just answer.
And what you're trying to say something. Tell us what you're saying.
Take them off.
Oh, I should take it off? Oh, I kind of like the look. Okay. So be it.
계속해서 하고 있으라고.
No, I mean, you can keep it on if you want, Mr. Rubin.
Keep it on. Okay. I'll accede to the instructions.
지금 세계가 경제 위기를 맞이하고 난 이후에 이 동아시아의 국가들이 비교적 위기를 좀 영향을 덜 받았고 또 위기를 탈출하는데 가장 먼저 탈출하는 것 같습니다. 특히 중국, 한국, 인디아까지도 그렇고 일본도 마찬가지입니다. 일본도 2, 4분기에 플러스 성장을 하게 되었습니다만은 지금 중국의 경제 규모가 아주 커졌습니다. 우리도 짧은 기간에 지금은 일본과 미국과의 통상 규모와 중국 한 나라의 경제 규모가 지금 같아졌습니다. 그만큼 중국은 한국에도 그 경제 면에서 영향이 커졌고 또 이번 이 금융 위기를 통해서 이 중국의 경제적 영향력이 점점 더 커지고 있는 것 같습니다.
So, Mr. Rubin, please allow me to begin by answering your question this way. Of course, the current global economic and financial crisis has affected all the countries around the world, but I'm very happy to note that economies in the Asian region, notably China, of course, including Korea, India, and even to the extent Japan, its economy has recovered fairly well from the current economic global financial crisis. For instance, the Japanese economy, the forecast for the second quarter, they're saying that they expect a positive growth for Japan, which is very good news for us all around the world. In terms of the size of the economy for China, we all know that its size has grown dramatically over the years. I think the size of Chinese economy alone, I think it's equal to the size or the combined size of Japan and the United States, or at least the trade volume between Japan and the United States equals the size of China. just to give you an illustration, this is how big the Chinese economy is, and of course the Korean economy has become very close with our neighbor China. And also we can note with certainty that the Chinese economy's influence in the global trading and also in the global economy has grown exponentially.
그래 지금은 경제 위기를 극복하는 과정이긴 하지만은 위기가 끝난 이후에 세계 글로벌한 균형을 유지해야 되고 너무 지나친 글로벌 임밸런싱이 된다든가 이렇게 됐을 때 여러 문제가 발생할 수 있기 때문에 앞으로 G20에서 또 특히 IMF 역할을 통해서 이러한 임밸런싱한 이 문제를 어떻게 해결해 나갈 것인가 하는 과제가 지금 나와 있습니다. 그러니까 아마 내년 하반기쯤 되면은 포스트 크라이시스에 위에 올 이러한 글로벌 임밸런싱한 이 문제를 조정하는 문제도 하나의 큰 과제가 되고 그랬을 때 우리가 이 문제를 어떻게 해결해 가느냐 하는 것이 아마 주된 국제 공조가 해야 될 이유 중 하나라고 봅니다.
And also, ladies and gentlemen, we are currently in the process of trying to come out of this current global economic and financial crisis. But what's more important is that we must never lose sight of the fact that we must really do all that we can and prepare for the post-crisis mode. And also, I'm talking about rebalancing the global growth. And there are going to be many issues stemming from the imbalance of global growth because if we don't do something about it preemptively. And in that regard, I think the G20 format has been extremely successful and will remain important for us as we deal with these very critical issues of global concern. Sometime in the latter half of next year, we will be engaging in enthusiastic discussions about what we are going to do post-crisis. And I think we are also going to talk about a host of issues, including governance issues, for instance, which will include the IMF reform and other very important topics. And for all of these to be successful and effective and long-lasting, international cooperation will be critically important.
특히 이제 신흥국가나 개발도상국가들이 이제 경제적 어려움에서 벗어날 수 있도록 선진국이 지원하는 문제, 그래서 균형 발전한다는 그러한 문제도 하나의 과제가 될 것 같다고. 이제는 어느 나라가 하나가 문제가 되더라도 세계가 영향을 똑같이 받기 때문에 이 균형 발전 문제에 있어서도 하나의 과제가 될 것으로 생각합니다.
And also, ladies and gentlemen, it's about really balanced growth because the G20 format brought together the leaders of the most advanced and the new and emerging economies so that we can all try to escape and recover from the current global economic crisis. But then again, I stress once again the importance of balanced growth because as we saw in this current crisis, a problem emanating from one country will inevitably have influence on other parts of the world.
Let me follow up then with my other question, if I may, Mr. President. You're going to be chair of the G20 after the Pittsburgh meeting, and you also refer sometimes to global Korea, suggesting a much broader role for Korea in the world than hitherto. How do you, if you think of China, Japan, well, Japan's a little bit different, China, Korea, and the other emerging market nations that have been so enormously successful, do you think that they will begin, and very much including Korea, they will begin to take a much larger role in the issues outside of Asia, for example, Mideast peace, Iranian nuclear ambitions, Darfur, you mentioned global climate change, and a whole host of questions in which they've not traditionally been involved, but which have major economies. They, at least some would argue, should now become as deeply involved as the European countries have, and the industrial countries.
그게 지금 아마도 내년에 이제 뭐 확실치는 않지만은 이번 피츠버그 이후에 내년도에 아마 어느 시점이 될지는 모르지만은 내년 중에 한국이 취해가 될 걸로 예상은 합니다. 아직 뭐 피츠버그 결정될 일이지만은 근데 한국에서 열릴 때쯤 되면 세계 경제가 아주 금융 위기에서 조금은 벗어나는 그 시점이 될 수 있고 또 새로운 글로벌 이슈가 많이 나오기 때문에 우리 한국이 그 취해를 할 때 여러 가지 그 데리케이트한 그러한 문제가 많기 때문에 책임이 큰 것 같습니다.
Yes, well, thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, of course, this isn't certain, but it's very highly likely that Korea will be hosting the next G20 meeting following this year's Pittsburgh meeting. It hasn't been decided yet, but we expect sometime next year to be the host of the G20. And once we do, by then, when Korea is the host of the G20 next year, hopefully we will be recovering from the current global economic crisis. And of course, there will always be new global issues that we must deal with. And of course, as host of the G20, Korea will have heavy responsibility to talk about these delicate issues and not just talk about them, but to come up with viable solutions to them.
동아시아가 그 중국 위시에서 그 영향력이 커지는 만큼 국제사회의 책임도 커진다고 볼 수가 있습니다. 책임을 다해야 한다고 생각합니다. 또 한편.
And of course, as the influence of East Asian countries grow, I believe that the responsibility of these countries will also grow together with them.
경제적인 측면에서 보면은 아마도 무역의 적자라든가 이런 임밸런스한 이 문제를 어떻게 할 거냐 하는 것도 아주 그 동아시아에 주어진 예민한 문제가 하나가 아닌가 생각합니다.
And also one of the many hosts of delicate issues concerning East Asia will be, from an economic point of perspective, what to do about the trade deficit or the imbalance between trade among different economies and regions.
지금 뭐 세계적인 이슈가 되어 있습니다만 기후 변화에 관련된 문제도 선진국과 중국, 인디아와 같은 신흥국가 간의 문제도 상당히 그 중요한 과제가 될 것 같습니다.
And of course, all of you will agree with me, the current global issue that concerns all of us, of course, is global climate change. And there are a difference of opinion about this between the advanced economies in countries like China and India. So this is an issue that we must deal with effectively as well.
그는 코펜하겐에서 그 12월 달 회의가 있지만은 그게 성공적으로 세계 모든 나라가 합의할 수 있을 것인가 하는 문제가 남아있기는 합니다만은 한국은 non-Annex 1에 속하는 나라이긴 하지만은 우리가 그 탄소 감축량 목표를 연말까지 발표를 할까 싶습니다. 그것은 왜냐하면 신흥국가들에게 조금 촉진하는 의미가 있고 신흥국과 선진국이 협조하는 과정에 우리 한국이 역할을 할까 그렇게 할 생각을 갖고 있습니다.
And of course, ladies and gentlemen, we have the upcoming Copenhagen meeting in December in Denmark. And in order to ensure success, we really must do all that we can. But the big question remains, will the countries be able to come to a final agreement in Copenhagen? We will have to wait and see. But having said that, Korea, although we are a non-Annex 1 country, we will continue to take voluntary measures, such as by the end of this year announcing a mitigation target for carbon emissions. And this measure, among others, is one way for us to contribute to this debate, because we want to, by doing this, encourage other emerging economies so that we can become a bridging role between the advanced and the emerging economies.
이 탄소 배출에 대해서는 역사적 책임을 묻는 신흥국가들의 목소리하고 또 선진국이 신흥국가 참여해야 된다는 강력한 선진국의 목소리, 이걸 어떻게 조화할 것인가 하는 문제, 참 어려운 문제긴 하지만은 또 해결하지 않으면 아니 되는 국제 이슈가 같습니다.
Yes, because when we talk about carbon emissions, many people point to and refer to this term historical responsibility. Of course, advanced economies do have some sort of historical responsibility, and they are encouraging the emerging economies that they must get on board and fight global climate change. On the other hand, the new and emerging economies are saying that they need some sort of another enticement to get on board. So bringing these two camps together is going to be a very difficult task, but we must do all that we can to bring some sort of harmony between these two camps.
그 외에 식량 안보 문제, 에너지 안보 문제 이런 여러 가지 문제가 있지만은 아무튼 내년 한국에서 G20가 열리게 되면은 G20 국가가 이번 위기를 탈출하는 데 굉장한 역할을 했고 그 신흥국가 선진국의 이 역사에 없던 협력 관계가 계속 유지되면서 이 국제 공정 문제를 푸는 데 기여할 수 있기를 기대하고 한국도 체화를 하면서 그 역할을 할 수 있도록 최선을 다하겠습니다.
And of course, ladies and gentlemen, apart from global climate change, we have the issue of food security and energy security and a whole host of other very important issues. And when Korea is the host of next year's G20, I think that it is important for us as hosts to continue this momentum because the G20 has been extremely successful in helping economies around the world recover from the current crisis, and I think that point must be noted and also sustained. And I think this has been an unprecedented historical case where we had the advanced economies together working with the new and emerging economies, and I think such format of cooperation must be sustained. And as chair of the G20 for next year, Korea will do its best to ensure that we continue with this momentum.
Mr. President, thank you. I have a follow-up question I would like to ask, but I'm going to constrain myself in order to give everybody else an opportunity to ask questions. So I'll call on people, and then would anybody like to start us off? Yes, ma'am. Just say who you are, what your affiliation is, and then...
Thank you. I'm Cora
You might
Weiss.
stand as well, I guess.
Thank you. I'm Cora Weiss from the Hague Appeal for Peace. The United Nations has declared today, September 21, an International Day of Peace to be celebrated every year. And I believe you said that North Korea faces not a threat but an opportunity. And then you said, I think, but it may be facing its last chance. Could you elaborate on what you mean by that?
나는 마지막 기회라고 생각하는데 북한은 그렇게 생각 안 할 수도 있다고.
Well, I think it's going to be their last chance. Maybe the North Koreans don't think so.
그러나 우리 국제사회가 이렇게 국제 공조를 지금 하고 있고 지금 북한을 강력한 권유를 해서 북한을 설득할 수 있도록 노력을 해야 된다고 생각하고 있고 아마 이번에 노력을 이것은 단순히 육자회담 국가뿐만 아니라 전 세계가 비핵 확산에 대한 그 이해를 함께 하고 있기 때문에 이번 기회에 세계가 함께 노력하면 성과를 좀 낼 수 있지 않겠냐 그런 기대를 하고 있습니다.
Ma'am, I truly believe that the international community has been working together to peacefully resolve this issue, and we will continue to do so. And that was my point of stressing the fact of the last chance. And of course, we will continue to encourage North Korea to fully and irrevocably give up their nuclear weapons program. And I believe through the cooperation among the 6 parties, as well as the international community, that we will be able to encourage North Korea to take that path, and of course, get them on board to work with the international community towards non-proliferation.
Next question. Yes, Ted Sorensen, who, as you know, is a chief advisor to President Kennedy.
Ooh.
Ted?
Mr. President, I'm Ted Sorensen of Paul Weiss. It's been a long time since several countries were left divided by the fortunes of the Cold War. Others, Germany and Yemen come to mind, were locations where the common ethnic, historical, cultural ties ultimately overcame the military and ideological barriers to reunification. Are you surprised that those same tugs toward unity have not succeeded on the Korean Peninsula?
And why haven't they succeeded?
우리 남북한이 사실은 참 불행하다고 할 수 있습니다. 지금 남북이 분단된 지가 벌써 60년 가까이 지금 되고 있고 또 남북이 첨예하게 북한은 150만 군대가 지금 있고 한국은 한 60만 군대가 있습니다. 아마 우리가 남북한이 양쪽에 쓰고 있는 국방비를 절약할 수 있으면은 아마 우리 한반도의 남북한의 국민들의 삶의 질이 굉장히 높을 수가 있습니다. 그런데 불행히도 북한은 지금 그 인구의 3분의 1이 굶주리는 상태에 있기는 합니다. 그래서 우리는 지금 북한을 통일이 중요하긴 하지만은 통일보다도 더 중요한 것은 남북 간의 화평하게 지내는 것 이렇게 것이 중요하고 또 북한의 지금 경제적 상황이 더 임프루브 되도록 그렇게 해야 된다. 북한 상태가 좀 좋아져야 통일 문제가 해결될 수 있을 것이다. 이 격차가 너무 벌어졌기 때문에 극한 상황이기 때문에 북한의 경제적 위치가 더 높아져야 된다. 그래서 우리는 핵을 포기하면 우리가 좀 본격적으로 북한을 국제사회에 함께해서 도와서 짧은 시간 내에 이렇게 성장할 수 있도록 하려는 그런 생각하고 있습니다.
Yes, thank you, sir. Indeed, the situation on the Korean Peninsula is very unfortunate for both North and South Korea. It's almost 60 years since the division of the peninsula. As you know, sir, we have about 1.5 million North Korean soldiers facing us near the DMZ, while we have 600,000 or so of our own soldiers trying to defend our own country. If we were to reduce this amount of defense expenditure being spent by the two Koreas, I'm sure that the quality of life for both North and South Korea would greatly improve. But unfortunately, that is not the case. As we know, the North Korean population, 1/3 of them are always in constant chronic hunger. That is the situation of the current North Korean economy and its regime. I do believe that it's critically important that we work towards unification of the Korean Peninsula, but at the same time, currently, the situation calls that we at least between South and North Korea. One reason for that is because of the state of the North Korean economy is so dismal that the gap between the two Korean economy has widened so much that unification right now is a very difficult prospect. And that is why we are convincing North Korea to fully give up their nuclear weapons program, because once they do, we have always been prepared to provide them with various forms of economic assistance in order to improve their economy quickly so that their standard of living will improve.
우리는 그 예멘에서 볼 수 있었던 무력을 행사한 통일은 결코 원하지 않습니다. 우리는 평화적 통일을 원하고 있고 또 동서독에서 볼 수 있듯이 계획이 없이 언젠가는 또 그런 기회가 올지 모르는 거기에 대한 대비도 우리는 항상 해야 된다고 있는 생각하고 있습니다.
And sir, you mentioned the case of Yemen. I understand that the unification of Yemen happened through violent means or perhaps not through entirely peaceful means. So we've never sought to achieve unification through such measures. We have always been consistent in our aim to achieve peaceful unification. In the case of the two Germanys, this happened quite unexpectedly, so we are always prepared for this contingency as well and making all the necessary preparations in case we have unification like Germany as well.
Next question? Yes, sir. We need a microphone if somebody would. There's one right over there.
Welcome back to the Council, Mr. President.
Oh, there you got two. You can take your choice.
Thank you. Mr. President, my name is Roland Paul. I'm a lawyer. I've been in the U.S. government in the past. We know a reasonably good deal about the North Korean plutonium program for obtaining nuclear weapons, but we don't know much about, if any, their enriched uranium. Could you tell us in this context or in this kind of meeting what you believe to be the extent of the North Korean enriched uranium program?
지금 북한은 우리가 2005년 9월 19일 그 협의가 이루어진 이후에 서로 육자회담과 협상을 해오는 과정에 북한은 농축 우라늄은 없다고 분명히 밝혔습니다. 그럼 미국도 그 북한의 그 이야기에 근거로 해서 서로 이야기를 하고 있었습니다만은 이번에 8월 달에 와서 핵실험할 때 북한은 농축 우라늄을 보유하고 있고 계속 개발하고 있다는 이야기를 스스로 이제 했습니다. 그렇기 때문에 우리 현재로서는 알 수는 없지만은 최악의 상태를 놓고 우리가 이번 협상할 때도 해야 된다고 그렇게 생각합니다.
Thank you, sir. As you know, in 2005, we had the so-called September 19th agreement with North Korea. And also this was during the time when the six-party talks framework was under negotiations. At the time, the North Koreans made it explicitly clear that they did not possess any uranium enrichment programs, and the United States government was negotiating based on that premise. However, following their latest, North Korea's latest underground nuclear testing this year, the North Koreans have come out and admitted and said publicly that they do have a uranium enrichment program. So I think when we negotiate with the North Koreans, that we will have to take the worst case scenario in mind and negotiate accordingly.
Mr. President, a follow-up question. What is the risk of the North Koreans selling capabilities? Not uranium, I guess, but scientific capabilities, the ability to produce nuclear weapons to others.
지금 시리아의 그 핵시설을 하다 중간에 이스라엘 폭격에 의해서 파괴가 되게 된 바가 있고 지금 이란이나 여러 뭐 이름을 대해서는 안 되게 될 수는 없습니다만은 그런 그 위험한 국가들과 거리에 있을 가능성은 있다고 보고 있습니다. 제가 있다 없다고 분명히 말씀드리지 않지만은 가능성은 있다고 저는 봅니다.
Yes, well, I do not want to make any definitive statements or name any countries here in my answer, but we know from reports or news media reports that quite recently there was a nuclear facility that has been bombed near the border between Syria and Iraq by the Israelis, and we assume that some of them came from North Korea. However, there is the possibility, and again, I do not want to say that there is or isn't, but there is still the possibility that North Korea may have been engaged in transacting their technology overseas.
Yes, ma'am.
She's a Korean.
She's a Korean. Well, we are.
She's not qualified to ask me.
제가 한국말로 질문해도 될까요? 우선은 we need a fun and exciting question here because it's too heavy. In fact, I'm here at Fashion Week, as you can see, but a businesswoman from Korea, and my name is Songju Kim. My question to the president. Before a question, in fact, we are very proud to have a CEO president, the first time in Korea, actively moving around, leading the whole global leadership. We are very proud, appreciate. Why not? Okay, actually, it's a kind of comment and my question too. We're all talking about the foreign relations, but really foreign relations start from individual. When I look at the relation between U.S. and Korea, more than 60 years since, 50 years since Korean War, and also now we are talking about FTA trade pact, which is $81 billion, one of the third largest one. But I wonder whether the future building this relationship can be initiated by women and younger generation, because we only talk about North Korea very heavy. I know this reality we have to face, but I think that this globalized world, half population in Korea, half population in the United States, composed by women. And also we talk about preparing the future generation for a better being. So I wonder, President, have any special really plan to encourage more individual exchange programs among women and younger generation for our future, great future together. Thank you.
뭐 내가 여기서 자세히 이야기는 하지 않겠지만은 지금 그 질문을 전적으로 내가 동의를 한다고. 매우 중요하고 그 중요한 질문을 내가 오바마 대통령 만나면 그것도 전달하겠다고.
Yes, thank you, ma'am, for that question. I won't go into too specific details, but let me just say, first of all, that I fully agree with your question and your comments. And the next time I meet President Obama, I'll make sure to bring it up and tell him as well.
Oh, I don't know. Way in the back over there. No, there we go.
Rick Smith from Newsweek. Mr. President, as you know, there's a spirited debate here now about the regulations that may or may not be necessary to respond to the recent financial crisis. Since your country, and in fact economies around the world, all felt the aftershocks of that crisis, I wonder if you have any thoughts about the scope or the nature of the regulations that might be required to prevent a repetition of that crisis.
지금 금융위기가 온 이후에 이제 금융에 대한 규제에 관련돼서 여러 논의가 있습니다만은 정상 간에 의견을 일치한 것은 아직 없습니다. 그러나 그거는 국가마다 또 사정이 좀 다르고 그 경제적 배경이나 그 문화 이것이 다르기 때문에 지금 그 다양한 이야기가 좀 나오고 있지만은 그나마 이번 피츠버그 회의에서도 아마 그런 다양한 그 의견에 대해서 아마 일치 보기는 힘이 듭니다. 힘이 들 것이고 그러나 금융 감독에 관련된 강화하는 문제에 대해서는 앞으로 긍정적으로 아마 논의가 될 것으로 그렇게 보고 있습니다.
Yes, thank you, sir. Like you rightly pointed out, because of the current financial crisis, there are a lot of talks among the leaders about erecting new forms of regulations, especially in the financial sector. But I can tell you for a fact that the world leaders, they have not come to a complete agreement on this issue. Because of the different circumstances and the unique needs and nature of each country, the different economical culture and also the background and so forth really prevents from the leaders coming to a complete agreement on this issue. Of course, there is very much spirited debate going on at the moment, and I expect this debate to continue this week when we all gather in Pittsburgh for the G20. But I do think it is going to be very difficult for all the leaders to come to a full agreement. But as for financial regulation and putting up new measures for financial regulatory activities, I'm sure this agreement or this discussion will result in a positive way, which will benefit rather than be detrimental.
Mr. President, let me, we as I said before, we teleconference really around the world. So let me read one question from someone who's listening to the teleconference. Chip Pitts of Stanford University asked you the following question. And he says that many companies around the world are adopting approaches of corporate social responsibility and sustainability, focusing not just on shareholders' interests, but on the full range of stakeholders. And his question is this an issue that Korean companies take seriously? And how important do you think corporate social responsibility is to the overall health of the Korean and global economies?
지금 이번에 그 금융위기가 발생을 했고 또 금융위기의 발상지는 뭐 알다시피 월가라고 이렇게 이야기를 많이 하고 있습니다. 그래서 세계 정상들 간에는 금융인들의 특히 금융인들의 기업 윤리랄까 사회적 책임 이런 것들이 상당히 신랄하게 논의가 되고 있고 지금도 유럽 국가 중에는 거기에 대한 상당한 그 제안하는 그 프로포절도 좀 나와 있긴 합니다. 그러나 그것이 뭐 합의가 이루어질지는 쉽지 않겠지만은 그런 이야기가 나와 있습니다. 그런데 그것은 지금 한국 기업들도 마찬가지입니다. 한국 기업이 급하게 성장하는 과정, 우리 역사가 이게 그 짧은 50년 사이에 뭐 더 짧게는 30년 사이에 발전한 과정이기 때문에 그 과정에서 기업들이 성장하는 과정에서 충분한 사회적 책임을 다하지 못했던 것은 사실입니다만은 이 최근에 와서는 한국의 특히 글로벌한 규모의 기업들은 이런 사회적 책임이라고 하는 문제에 있어서 굉장히 적극적으로 참여를 하고 있고 또 한국 국민들도 이런 기업들이 대기업들이 그런 기업의 윤리적 측면에서도 관심을 갖고 있고 또 기업이 사회적 책임을 다하는 데에서도 깊은 관심을 갖고 있기 때문에 한국 기업들은 아마 그 면에 있어서는 빠르게 참여를 할 것이라고 그렇게 확신하고 있습니다.
Yes, well, ladies and gentlemen, we all know that the current economic crisis originated from the United States, and more specifically, it originated from Wall Street. And so as a result, many people around the world have been questioning whether these people, or to be exact, financiers, they question their moral responsibility or the corporate responsibility of some of the firms that really were to blame for the current global economic crisis. And that is one reason why we see many Europeans putting forth a lot of propositions and proposals in order to prevent such a thing from happening again. Well, the Korean corporate sector, I think it's in a very similar situation because, however, a little bit different. The fact is the Korean corporate sector has grown tremendously over the last 50, and if you look at it even shorter than that, in the last 30 years, they posted tremendous growth. And I think this was a time when these Korean companies really did not have time or the will to look back and think about corporate social responsibility on their part. However, we have many Korean companies that have become global players, And now they are very proactive in exercising their corporate social responsibility in Korea and abroad. And to add another point, I think the Korean consumers and the people are exercising consumer responsibility. One way for that is to demanding Korean companies to exercise corporate social responsibility and making them engage in more activities towards this end. So I think in this regard, in terms of corporate social responsibility, I think Korean companies will continue to make some contributions, and I hope that they do.
We will adjourn, as we always do, promptly at council events, and our adjournment time is 2 o'clock, so we probably have time for one more question, and we'll just arbitrarily take that. I can't see who it is, but anyway, woman in the middle.
Thank you, Secretary Rubin.
Oh, it's Lori.
It's Lori Garrett from the Council. Mr. President, thank you so much for joining us. Very quick question. Six parties talk always focus on nuclear proliferation questions, but North Korea has long been rumored to have stockpiles of specific biologicals that could be weaponized or perhaps have been. In particular, it's been long alleged that they did not turn over their stocks of smallpox in 1977 when the rest of the world did. Should biologicals be part of the six parties negotiations, and how seriously do you take this?
잘하겠습니다. 근데 사실 북한의 그 관련된 문제는 뭐 핵 문제뿐만 아니고 사실은 이제와 같은 케미컬 웨폰에 대한 그 대량 살상 무기 문제, 또 인권 문제, 뭐 여러 가지 논의가 지금 돼야 될 대상은 있습니다. 그런데 지금 이 핵 문제는 전체 육자 회담이 아주 글로벌한 관심사이기 때문에 아마 핵 문제를 지금 이슈로 삼고 있지만은 아마 그 핵 문제가 해결되면 뒤이어서 아마 본격적으로 그런 대량 살상 무기라든가 인권 문제 뭐 이런 것들도 분명히 논의가 될 것이고 핵 문제가 해결되면 그 다음 문제가 따라서 오히려 쉽게 풀릴 수 있지 않겠느냐 하는 그런 기대를 합니다. 그래서 그 문제를 동시에 내놓고 하는 것보다는 가장 강력한 이슈인 핵 문제를 해결하고 따라서 해결한다 아마 이런 전략을 가고 있습니다.
Thank you, ma'am, for the question. And yes, indeed, biological weapons is a very serious issue. But I think not only the nuclear issue, but also the issue of weapons of mass destruction and North Korean human rights issue. These are all very important issues that must be dealt with when dealing with North Korea. And they, of course, are on the agenda, but not on the six-party talks agenda, because as we all agree, the urgent matter and the pressing concern that we face is North Korean nuclear weapons program. And the six-party talks framework has been established in order to specifically deal with North Korean nuclear issue. And of course, this will be, because this is a global issue, the six-party talks has been engaging in order to resolve this issue peacefully. But I do believe that once we have a full resolvement of the North Korean nuclear issue, then these issues of equal importance, like the weapons of mass destruction, North Korean human rights situation, and other issues, will have to be dealt with in one way or another. And of course, once we have the resolvement of the North Korean nuclear issue, then I do foresee and hope that these other issues of equal importance and magnitude will be able to come to a resolvement as well. One thing I am concerned about is for us to really lay everything out on the table simultaneously and try to figure a way out of all these very important issues all at the same time. But rather, right now for us, the urgent concern is to try to resolve the North Korean nuclear issue, which has always been a concern for the international community.
Mr. President, on behalf of the Council, we again are deeply honored and delighted you're with us. As Richard Haas said to you as you were coming in, we look forward to you joining us again, and we wish you the best in everything that you do. Thank you. You were terrific. You really were terrific.
Thank you for watching this Council on Foreign Relations video. For additional audio, video, and transcripts of CFR meetings, as well as expert analysis of international news, please visit us online at cfr.org.